Hey, it's Sam, and I'm here today on September 11th at 4:30 p.m. talking about the current cycles in the sky that we have for this week. We have the new moon that's happening in Leo. We also have Mercury is retrograde, but he turns direct in a couple of days. Venus is now also direct. We also have Jupiter retrograde, Saturn retrograde. So we have a lot to talk about. So check this out. Please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell on YouTube to get notified of new videos and live streams. Also, leave a comment, share it with others on Facebook, Twitter, or other social media platforms. So as you can see, this is actually for September 14th. By the time we have that, Mercury is actually about to turn direct, and we have the new moon in Leo happening then. I'll do a full video on the new moon in Leo, but this is a big shift that's happening because this week the moon is going through the section of the zodiac where it's going over these last few lunar days of the month of Cancer, because we've had two new moons in Cancer this year. It's called Adhika Masa, which is the extra month. So we're about to have the new moon in Leo, and it's going to feel like a real sort of shot in the arm a little bit. So this new moon in Leo will happen on September 14th and start a new sort of initiating cycle, a cycle of sort of fiery nature and new individuality. But in the midst of that, again, we're still dealing with Mercury retrograde in Leo now. The Mercury retrograde in Leo is about getting clear about the story in our head, particularly as it relates to our success and wanting to, find ourselves in a way that's bigger than just the collective self, right? So really trying to see beyond just our sort of comfort zone and get that story straight about what our real power is, which are the qualities of Leo. Mercury has been retrograde in Leo for a couple weeks. He's got a few more days left. So how have you been reflecting on your potential and your higher potential? It's definitely an important thing. Especially again with this Leo cycle about to begin, and with Mercury turning direct around the middle of the month, again in the middle of September 14th, 15th, all these things starting, we can definitely see a new cycle going forward, especially using your skills and intelligence and communication to rise to your highest in life. That's definitely important and a big cycle that's changing. In addition, we have Venus moving direct in Cancer. It's been there for a while. Venus went retrograde, and it's direct in Cancer now. So it's really been a time when we're reflecting, or when we're moving forward again, hopefully, on some of our reflections from the recent Venus retrograde cycle. The Venus retrograde cycle, it started in Leo, then it went back into Cancer. Now it's moving forward. And that forward movement is hopefully, after we've reflected on the nature of our agreements, our compromises, how well we are in agreements with others. Do we ask for too much? Do we always feel disrespected? Do we disrespect others? What are we really doing in our relationships and in our agreements? So Venus now in Cancer is where we're really feeling that deep in the heart, and maybe feeling and wanting a deeper connection and a deeper bond, maybe after reflecting on our part in breaking connection, or whether or not we really have the type of empathy and love and devotion for others that we want them to have for us. And so Venus moving forward in Cancer now could be bringing up those sorts of things for sure. By the way, I will also want people to know, as I've been talking about quite a bit in the last few months, especially since I started my, I have been bringing more people into my certification course, the Live Your True Nature certification course, that all of these planetary forces, the sun, Mercury, Venus, they're all these divine energies, these divine principles into which we're, sort of trying to awaken in ourselves. We get very stuck in the external qualities when Mercury, which is the pure force of intelligence and discrimination, and the correct story, which is, the correct story is that you can really accomplish anything, actually, if you're in alignment with your pure light and your pure vision. Then all the skills and discrimination of Mercury can take you wherever you want to go. Again, that would be Mercury in Leo in the highest sense, connecting to your power and understanding and interpreting that, and then acting from that place of pure intelligence and pure wisdom. But instead, because we filter it through our ego and through the three gunas and the literally our ego, our sense of separateness, our false sense of separateness, instead of getting the clear story, we get the distorted story. We get the distortion field of, oh, well, because of my childhood, I have this, and because I have that, and people don't appreciate me, and I'll never be able to do that. And what about this? And we get this distorted version of our power. So rather than identifying what we're capable of, we get stuck in some old story, and we're convinced that it's real. And the reason we're convinced it's real is because we're convinced that we're the ego. You're convinced that you're this separate person. You're convinced that all of that is the only reality. Now, it doesn't mean it's not real, that those things didn't happen or those thoughts aren't real. There's no bypassing involved by acknowledging reality. But it's not the only reality. Just like, yes, you have a body, but your body isn't your whole reality, and you have emotions, but your emotions aren't the entirety of your reality. You're beyond those things. So, but we stay stuck in them. And so, again, this is how the ego darkens our highest potential. And this is right out of what's called Sankhya philosophy. This isn't me making up anything, but it is me connecting all the astrological wisdom to the transcendent wisdom of Indian thinking. And every astrology school or teacher or whatever doesn't do that. So that is unique. When you study with me, you learn it that way, and you learn it in a precise way. And so all of the astrological indicators, that also includes Venus, is where we want happiness and the bliss of the soul. But instead, we wind up getting in the limited enjoyment and pleasure through the senses, because that's how Venus feels to our ego. To our ego, Venus feels like pleasure, and then eventually maybe happiness with other people. But it's really something transcendent. And we're trying to feel the transcendent part of our nature. And so these things are very important. And by the way, if you want to learn about these things, and in fact, even get a web class, free 4-part series on how this works, if you haven't gotten it yet, I would recommend that you do. This series on your cosmic nature, it's actually a 4-part video series that I put together that explains your true self, your cosmic self, then your unique self in this lifetime, then your egoistic struggles, and then the joyful path home. And I dropped a link there. You'll see the links below the video, yourtruenaturevideos.com. You can get that and learn about yourself in that higher capacity. So rather than just always being at the mercy of the current astrological transits and how they're affecting you, and you just living all of it like so it's so deeply embedded, you're more connected to something that's transcendent and eternal. Because again, regardless of the transits, Mercury is always going to be that story in your head that's connecting you to higher potential. But then after it leaves Leo and the higher potential, then it goes into Virgo. So then the way the astrology would work is you take that higher potential and you organize it correctly and perfectly into these systems where you can understand and transcend, again, the story of your circumstances. Because again, Virgo is very much about making adjustments and taking that power and organizing it correctly. So again, next Mercury goes into Virgo, right? So that's, if you want to get the highest quality of that, not just the egoistic quality, then you would want to understand Mercury just as a pure force of intelligence and Virgo as a pure force of intelligence. So again, if you're interested in really knowing about these things in a higher sense, you can check that out. Go to yourtruenaturevideos.com to get the Live Your True Nature 4-part video series. The first is called Your True Self, Your Cosmic Self, where we talk about the Atman, the Jiva Atman that comes down into the 9 planets of Lord Vishnu, how we incarnate. Then we look at our egoistic struggles in video 3, where we try to return back to the path home, the joyful and wise path home, in video 4. So again, yourtruenaturevideos.com. It's time to know yourself, not just believe in yourself. So yeah, like I said, it's time to know yourself, not just believe in yourself. This is one of the things that happens with astrology. People are like, oh, I know all of that, I know that, but they don't really know it. It's not knowledge. It's not knowledge until you can live it authentically. That's what karma is. Karma is the actual result of what you're doing, not just what you believe. So you might believe all of this stuff I'm saying. Everybody believes it. They hear me, oh, that's great, I believe all of that. But you don't know it. It's a big difference. And it's a big illusion that we have now, is that because we believe something, we know it. Or because we believe it and we can identify certain things like, oh yeah, I know Mercury is in Leo, so I know it's this thing. But again, it's unless it's being applied, it's not really changing your life very much. So go ahead and check that out. Very important to understand this evolutionary process of all the planets that I'm talking about. Because we also have Jupiter retrograde now. And again, Jupiter is that sense of meaning and purpose, which is transcendent of just your philosophies and beliefs in the moment. Your philosophies and beliefs in the moment about astrology or really anything else. You believe even things like politics and this and that or whatever it might be. There's a lot of beliefs about it. A lot of those beliefs getting shattered, getting transformed, and again, being put into practice, hopefully, and being reflected upon by how much these things can affect your life and actually affect your life. How do they affect your life? Are the things that you believe really taking you forward? Are the things you believe really connecting you with something that's worthwhile? Is it really giving your life a direction? Because that's actually what the Jupiter thing is. Guru is supposed to be that guru's grace that gives our life direction. And what is the direction that your life is going based on what you believe? This is big stuff. Think about it. Again, look, what I do for a living is talk to people about these things. So when I talk on these videos, I know the difference between what most people who are watching this actually believe, and that means even believe about yourself and believe about what you think astrology is and whatever else it might be, and how those beliefs are actually affecting your life. because people believe all kinds of stuff, and they believe in astrology or believe in this and believe in that. But then it doesn't even help them in their life very much at all, because they're still just terrified of losing the money or losing the job or losing the person or this and that. Everything is still just hyper on. You're always still on alert. And there's this illusion that these beliefs are somehow changing things very much. Now, again, it's better to believe things that are closer to truth, but belief itself is kind of irrelevant. It's practice. It's better to not believe anything and practice something, because the practice, especially a good, authentic practice, is going to transform your life because you're actually doing it. Like, you don't have to believe anything, but if you do authentic meditation and you breathe and you actually do these things, it's going to give you an experience of your true nature, an experience of it, not a belief about it. Oh yeah, I do believe I'm this being. I do believe this. I believe it. Oh, that's great. I heard Sam speak about this, and yes, it was so great. I believe all of that. Oh, it's so inspiring. Okay, so inspiring. And then the next minute, right back to the same. Doesn't really change anything. It feels good for a while. Again, it's all emotional, but it's better to not hear that, believe any of it, and sit and meditate and get an experience that's real. That's going to be more transcendent and more transforming than anything else. So this Jupiter retrograde is about reflecting on how these teachings and your beliefs, especially, the things you believe, are they really taking you anywhere? Or where are they taking you? And again, not just saying, oh, no, my beliefs are this. How is it changing anything? And you want to measure it against what happens when there's crisis. What happens when everything gets disrupted? Then what do your beliefs give you? Deepak Chopra actually had a very wise quote about this, where he said, we have to put our teachings into practice. Otherwise, they're of no benefit to us. Because then when we have crisis, we just fall back on what we know. And I mean, he says what we know is like what we really know, which is what we're living. The things that you really know, which are the things that you fall back on, are the things that you do. So when you have a crisis in your life, you're not going to fall back on what you believe. You're going to fall back on what you do. That's why you need to put the teachings into practice and have them be spiritual practices, not just beliefs. Otherwise, it's just religion. And that's why there's so much religious hypocrisy all around, where people believe things and they do this stuff, but then they don't practice it. And it's really of no use to them, because then when there's crisis or difficulty, they just go back to fear, maybe even ruthlessness, domination, anger, projection, acting, mean toward other people or whatever it might be. And many times you can see, quote, spiritual people or people who believe they're spiritual, believe this kind of stuff, can be the worst, because they're also in this illusion of, oh, I'm a good person. Oh, I believe this. I have this guru. I have this, that. I have this, that. And find some way to rationalize abhorrent behavior toward others, or just not growing. So this is a huge thing with Jupiter retrograde. I'm talking about it a lot because it's gone for a few months, and we're meant to be reflecting on Jupiter retrograde cycles quite a bit. And that, as you see on this chart, this Jupiter trying to bring meaning and purpose and philosophy, etc. And rather than just typical belief systems, right? So we also have this Saturn is also retrograde now still, and it's aspecting these planets in Leo. Saturn retrograde also is bringing this reality check into things. And it's about the weight of time influencing our life. The weight of time influencing our decisions and showing us the truth. By the way, all these planets will be passing over this Saturn and getting this Saturn aspect, including Jupiter, and also Venus is going to go through it. So Saturn shows the measurement of time and whether or not we're wasting our time, the verdict of time, to show us the truth, to show us the true nature of what's going on. So, Saturn retrograde is going to be a continuing ongoing transit. And again, he's in Aquarius, so he's really helping us also see the implications of how our energy spirals over time and whatnot. We also have an important holiday that's coming up. It's actually next week, but it's quite connected to Saturn Jupiter energy, and it's called Ganesh Chaturthi. It's the day to honor Lord Ganesha. And it's very much about this overcoming of obstacles and this initiation of new cycles and things like that. And so it's it's where we need to make a kind of internal commitment to seeing the blockages that come through the ego. Lord Ganesha is really the one who closes the door to the Kundalini energy to protect us from all of that spiritual power. Because, underneath it all, the biggest thing that you're afraid of is your power. You're afraid of your power. You're afraid to unleash that power. And in the mythology, Lord Ganesha with the elephant head is the guardian of the Muladhara chakra, which is the first chakra that opens once you start doing spiritual practices. And on the other side of that door is his mother, goddess Parvati, or the goddess Maya. Basically, it's the Kundalini energy, which is what all of this energy up here, this pure energy of all the planets, the goddess Maya, the Jiva Atman, Devi, Prakriti, the moon. This is all what's called the Kundalini energy, which is all of that hidden potential and power. And Ganesha sits there and blocks that to protect you. So as much as he shows obstacles, he also shows the remover of the obstacles. And the remover of the obstacles comes through wisdom, vidya, and spiritual experience and practice, like I'm saying here. Because again, we have a lot of beliefs about things, and we everything is emotional. We're very emotional people. Everything is an emotion. And we take our emotions, even when we try to analyze astrological indicators. It's one of the biggest challenges that a teacher has who has been teaching a long time, is to get people out of the idea that everything is just an emotion. Like, oh, liberation, I want liberation. Like, that sounds so much like a liberating emotion. But liberation is challenging because it means loss. But loss doesn't feel good. So everything is about a feeling, and we're so emotional about everything. That's usually the pinnacle. And true spirituality is beyond the emotion. It's into something that's transcendent, peaceful. The spirit and peace and stillness is not some emotion you're going to have. It's not an emotion about it. It's a state of awareness. It's your nature. And yes, happy emotions and elated emotions are better than depressing emotions. So we're trying to get that. And we actually even think that happy emotion, that elated state, is what we would call the sattvic guna. So those of you who understand yoga and the three gunas, sattva is like, oh yeah, that's the good one. Sattva is spirituality. No, sattva is it's a higher state of the mind that's more peaceful, but it's not an emotional state. It's not like love, the love that we have with a partner where, oh, I felt so good and I'm so emotional. That takes us closer to it because of the peace and because of the connection, but not because of the emotion, the passion and all. That's not sattva. Sattva is still and peaceful. And it's beyond that. That's still very much the ego, that whole kind of elated emotional peace, that state of emotion that feels like peace. I'm saying this because with holy days like Ganesh Chaturthi or with breaking through the ego and the darkness of the ego and moving into that transcendent level. That's where these deep spiritual practices are so important, to do the practices, because the practices bring the stillness and the peace. And then we can really start to understand how Lord Ganesha, as the remover of obstacles, it's not just obstacles. Again, we think of, oh yeah, this obstacle in my job or in my relationship or in my something of the world that I want to get. Oh, Ganesha removes that for me, so I'll be happy, I'll be successful, I'll be this, I'll be that. Yeah, that's the very mundane level. That's the least important part of it. The most important part is that he's the guardian at the door of the Muladhara chakra, where your true liberation begins. And by the way, the Kundalini opens and the Muladhara chakra opens, and you feel that transcendent state beyond the ego. That's not the end of anything. It's just the beginning. It's the beginning of reality, that you're not just this body-mind person. It's not the culmination of anything, except that now you've actually had an experience of something beyond your emotions. So again, very holy day, Ganesh Chaturthi, is coming up on the 19th. And so again, that's in about a week. There was a question about Live Your True Nature gets students the formula for reading the natal chart. Well, the formula is easy. A formula is easy, but being able to do it requires your practice. But what the Live Your True Nature videos give you is what I just said. It gives you first the understanding, or I break down these things that I'm saying now very methodically and very systematically. The formula to read your chart means that you have to go deeply into all of these principles. I could give you the formula. I could give you interpret this, you interpret that, you interpret this, you interpret that. I could show you that. But then it's like saying you do this algebra question, this geometry question, this calculus question, and then you get to the end. So yes, it's that complicated to do it very well, but it's not that complicated to understand it. So rather than ask if it's going to give you the formula to read the chart, unless you've been reading charts for quite a while or you've been studying for quite a while, it doesn't mean, I'm not going to lie to you and say, oh yeah, by after getting these 3 videos, you'll be able to read your natal chart. I mean, you'll be able to understand the concepts, but Barbara, I know who you are, and you've been in and out in my field for, I don't know how long, more than 10 years by now. So you've had plenty of opportunity to engage with what I teach. And so anytime you want to actually learn this stuff, you've been able to do it. And so instead of, if you're kind of looking for, is this the magic bullet where I get 4 videos and I can suddenly know everything? No, it's not that. In order to do that, you have to actually invest and commit and actually learn it, which in itself is worth it. But you have to decide whether or not that's worth it to you on that level. But definitely most people don't understand these things very well at all. Again, they hear me talk about them, but they don't really understand how does it work. How does consciousness come down from your cosmic self and the Atman and Jiva Atman into Vishnu as the divine forces, and then how that comes down through your ego, through the illusion of Maya, and down into the gunas, and then down into the chart. So I've said this before, when it comes to understanding, you're here right now. You're down here in the karma of the chart. Many of us don't even know we're living the karma of the chart. We think we're somewhere up here in some spiritual state. We think we're up here in some very high level. We're down here 99.9% of the time. We're waking up and eating and involved with emotional entanglements with others, and we're very much into the karma of life. With, Vedic astrology, all the techniques and principles, we can see what the karma is and all that. That's where we are. So until we start to really be intentional with spiritual practice, especially studying astrology properly, we're not going to really learn about all this other stuff. We're not going to know this part of our nature. Unless you start to study it properly, you'll be hung up in all of this karma down here. I'm not saying it's wrong or bad. That's the way life is. When you start to want to ascend beyond just something that I could see in the chart, yeah, this is why your inner conflicts are here, you're stuck in this, you're stuck in that. That's all just all these astrological techniques and karma. If you want to start to push beyond that and start to penetrate beyond just that and understand the nature of the ego through the gunas and the elements and all this, then you have to study, you have to do the meditations, you have to do the practices, and then eventually you push through that into a very pure level of your nature, which is above the ego and the very transcendent quality of your being, which again even precedes your karma. It's higher than your karma and your ego and your separateness. Up here, this is when you start to penetrate through and the Kundalini opens to these pure qualities. And then you go into that thing which is transcendent even of birth and death and those energetic models, and you get up here. So Barbara, your question is good in that context, but most people, they really need to understand this, and the 4-part video series does that, and then also connects you with how to understand and what type of studies you could do if you wanted to do anything beyond that. So anyway, I hope this was helpful for you to understand about what's coming up this week, where we are right now with the new moon coming up in Leo, with a lot of this Leo energy and Mercury, Venus in Cancer, Jupiter retrograde, Saturn up here. And so I hope, again, that that's been helpful for you, and you take care. For a limited time, I'm offering 10 hours of masterclasses, Yoga and Vedic Astrology, Quantum Vedic Astrology, and Spiritual Astrology Masterclass. These are 3 great courses that will really help you a lot. Now, in case you don't know who I am, I taught the AstroVed certification course, Dattatreya Shiva Baba, in 2010. Ravi Shankar published my book in 2018. I've been around for decades. I've been teaching these great classes, and if you go to VedicAstrologyEssentials.com, you can get this 90% off discount of these 3 great classes, more than 10 hours, guaranteed value. You can check this out. These 3 classes will give you all the necessary tools to begin to learn Vedic astrology. Go to YourTrueNatureVideos.com to get the Live Your True Nature 4-part video series. The first is called Your True Self, Your Cosmic Self, where we talk about the Atman, the Jiva Atman that comes down into the 9 planets of Lord Vishnu, how we incarnate. Then we look at our egoistic struggles in video 3, where we try to return back to the path home, the joyful and wise path home, in video 4. So again, YourTrueNatureVideos.com. It's time to know yourself, not just believe in yourself.